Admiral sat in her command chair, watching the stars through the wide windows of her ship. The Imperial border fleet had been quiet for months. Too quiet. Her four arms moved across the control panels as she checked the daily reports. Nothing unusual, nothing dangerous, just empty space and distant planets that belonged to the Galactic Empire. The Empire was huge. It controlled 3 entire spiral arms of the galaxy. 47 different alien species lived under Imperial rule. For 800 years, the Empire had been the strongest force in known space. Their ships were fast. Their weapons were powerful. Their armies were endless. Had served the Empire for 50 years. She had fought in 12 wars against species who tried to resist Imperial rule. She had seen planets surrender without a fight when they saw the Imperial fleet approaching. Fear and respect kept the galaxy in order. Then the alarm rang. "Admiral," shouted Lieutenant On from his station. "Emergency signal from Outpost Delta 7. Sneck's scales turned bright orange, a sign of stress in her species. Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was panicked and high-pitched. "Admiral, this is Commander at Delta 7. We have a problem, a big problem." "Report," said calmly. "There's a ship, Admiral, unknown design. It appeared on our long-range scanners 30 minutes ago. It's inside Imperial space." Felt her hearts beating faster. The Empire had the best sensors in the galaxy. No ship could enter Imperial space without being detected immediately. How far inside? 0.3 parsecs past the border, Admiral, and it's moving toward the core worlds. This was impossible. The border was watched by hundreds of sensor stations and patrol ships. Nothing could get through without being seen. "What species?" asked. "Unknown, Admiral. The ship design doesn't match anything in our databases. We've checked all 47 member species. We've checked our enemies. We've checked ancient records. Nothing." Stood up from her chair. Her scales were now deep red. "Send me the sensor data." The data appeared on her main screen. What she saw made her heart skip a beat. The ship was small, maybe half the size of an Imperial cruiser, but the energy readings were wrong. Very wrong. "Lieutenant On," she called. "Check these power readings." The young officer's eyes went wide as he looked at his instruments. "Admiral, this can't be right. According to these readings, that small ship is generating power equal to a small star." "Run the scan again." "I've run it 5 times, Admiral. The readings are the same each time." Stared at the screen. In 50 years of service, she had never seen anything like this. The ship was too small to hold the power systems needed for such energy output. It was physically impossible. "Have you tried to communicate with them?" she asked. "Yes, Admiral, we've broadcast on all known frequencies. We've used the standard first contact protocols. We've tried all 47 member species languages. Nothing but static." "What about their course?" "Straight line toward the core worlds, Admiral. Current speed is 0.75 light speed. If they maintain course and speed, they'll reach the capital system in 6 days." 6 days, mind raced. She had to report this immediately. Send an emergency message to High Command. Tell them we have an unknown vessel with impossible technology heading for the core worlds. Request immediate backup. "Already done, Admiral. High Command has ordered all available ships to this sector." Within hours, the news had spread across the Empire. Emergency meetings were held on dozens of worlds. Military leaders gathered in secret sessions. Scientists checked and rechecked the sensor data. The results were always the same. The ship was impossible. High Admiral himself contacted from the capital. His image appeared on her main screen, showing his worried expression. "Admiral, I need answers. What exactly are we dealing with?" "I don't know, sir," replied honestly. "The ship doesn't match any known technology. The power readings suggest technology far beyond our capabilities." "Could this be a weapon from the first ones?" "The first ones were a legend. Ancient stories spoke of a powerful race that had ruled the galaxy long ago before mysteriously disappearing. Most Imperial scientists believed they were just myths." "I don't know, sir, but if the legends are true and they've returned." "Then we're in serious trouble," finished. "I'm sending Admiral with the 3rd Fleet. You will intercept this vessel and determine its intentions." "And if it's hostile, sir?" "Then you stop it, whatever it takes." The connection ended, turned to her crew. "Set course to intercept, maximum speed." As her ship accelerated through space, couldn't shake a feeling of dread. In 800 years, the Empire had never faced a technological challenge they couldn't overcome. They had always been the strongest, the most advanced, the most feared. But this ship changed everything. Her science officer, a brilliant female named La, approached her chair. "Admiral, I've been studying the sensor data. There's something else." "What?" "The ship's hull composition. We can't identify it. It's not metal, not ceramic, not any known material. It's almost like it's grown rather than built." "Grown?" "Yes, Admiral, like biological tissue, but stronger than any metal we know." Felt her scales turn even darker red. "Keep scanning. I want to know everything about this ship before we reach it." But deep down, she suspected they were about to encounter something beyond their understanding. Something that would change the Empire forever. The unknown ship continued its steady course toward the heart of Imperial space, its impossible engines pushing it through the void. And somewhere inside that mysterious vessel, forces beyond Imperial imagination waited to reshape the galaxy. 2 days later, Admiral's fleet caught up with the mysterious ship. The battlecruiser Dominion's edge-led 3 other Imperial vessels in an intercept formation. Captain Al commanded the Dominion's edge, and he had experience with first-contact situations. He had fought in 12 wars where the Empire had conquered new species. "There it is," said Captain Al, as the unknown vessel appeared on their main screen. The ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was smooth and curved, with no sharp edges or obvious weapon systems. It looked almost alive, like a giant sea creature swimming through space. Strange patterns of light moved across its hull like a heartbeat. "Still no response to our communications?" Admiral asked from her flagship. "Nothing, Admiral," replied the communications officer. "We've tried everything, all languages, all frequencies, even mathematical sequences." "Begin standard Imperial protocol," ordered. "Broadcast surrender demands." Captain Al activated the Imperial standard message. His voice went out across space in 847 different languages. "Unknown vessel, you have entered Imperial space without permission. You will stop immediately and prepare to be boarded. Failure to comply will result in the destruction of your ship." They waited. Space was silent except for the hum of their own engines. Then suddenly a voice came through their speakers. It was calm, male, and speaking perfect Imperial standard. "This is Captain James of the Terran Federation starship Indomitable. We come in peace, but we will defend ourselves if threatened." The bridge went quiet. Every officer stared at their instruments in shock. "Did he say Terran?" whispered Lieutenant On. "Run that word through our databases," ordered. The computer searched through millions of records, species names, planet names, historical records, ancient texts. The result came back quickly. No matches found. Captain Al leaned forward in his chair. "Unknown vessel, identify your species and state your business in Imperial space." "My species is human," came the calm reply. "My business is my own, but I'm happy to talk if you'd like to lower your weapons first." "Lower our weapons?" Al's scales flashed angry purple. "You're in violation of Imperial law. You will submit to boarding and inspection immediately." "I'm afraid that won't be possible, Captain. We have our own protocols to follow." Felt her anger rising. No one spoke to Imperial officers this way. No one refused Imperial commands. "Captain, I am Admiral of the Imperial Border Fleet. You will comply with our demands or face the consequences." "Admiral," the human replied politely, "with respect, I don't recognize your authority here. This region of space was never truly empty, despite what your maps might say." The words sent a chill through every Imperial officer listening. How could he know about their maps? How could he speak their language so perfectly? "Sir," whispered the science officer to Captain Al, "I'm detecting something odd about his speech patterns. He's speaking Imperial standard perfectly, but there are underlying grammatical structures that don't match any known species." Meanwhile, Admiral was losing patience. "Captain, you have 30 seconds to comply or we will take action." "Admiral, I really hope you'll reconsider. Your families will want you to come home safely." The casual mention of their families was somehow more threatening than any weapon. How could this alien know about their personal lives? "All ships move to flanking positions," ordered. The 3 Imperial ships began to spread out, surrounding the human vessel. It was a standard tactical formation designed to prevent escape. The human ship did something impossible. Without changing course or speed, it rotated to face all three Imperial ships at the same time. The movement was smooth and effortless, as if the laws of physics didn't apply to it. "How did they do that?" gasped Captain Al. "Unknown, sir. They're maintaining course and speed while rotating along multiple axes simultaneously. It should be impossible." Then every weapon system on the Imperial ships began screaming warnings. Energy spikes were detected from the human vessel. Massive power buildups that suggested weapons far beyond Imperial technology. "All ships raise shields," shouted. But then, as quickly as the energy spikes had appeared, they vanished. The human ship's power readings returned to their normal impossible levels. "Captain," said slowly, "are you threatening us?" "Not at all, Admiral. I was just making sure you could see what you're dealing with. I'd prefer we keep this civil. You've got families to go home to after all." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. The human had powered up weapons that could apparently destroy all three Imperial ships, then powered them down again. He was showing restraint. "Sir," the tactical officer whispered to Captain Al, "our computers can't identify the type of weapons he just powered up. The energy patterns don't match anything in our databases." Admiral made a decision. "Fire warning shots across their bow." "Admiral, are you sure?" Captain Al asked. "Do it." The Imperial ships fired bright energy beams designed to pass just in front of the human vessel. It was a standard warning, meant to show force without causing damage. The energy beams simply disappeared. "What happened to our shots?" demanded. "Unknown, Admiral. The energy was absorbed before it could reach their ship. No impact, no deflection, no explosion. The energy just vanished." Captain's voice came through the speakers again, still calm. "Admiral, I'd prefer we keep this civil. You've got families to go home to." "How are you absorbing our weapons' fire?" asked. "The same way you breathe air, Admiral. It's just what our ships do." Before anyone could respond, the human ship suddenly accelerated. Not gradually, like Imperial ships did, but instantly. One moment it was moving at normal speed, the next it was racing past the Imperial blockade at nearly the speed of light. "Track them," shouted. "They're moving through our formation, Admiral. They're not going around us, they're threading the gaps between our ships." Captain Al watched in amazement as the human ship wove between his vessels with impossible precision. The gaps between Imperial ships were barely wide enough for a single vessel to pass through, and the calculations needed for such navigation should require massive computer systems. "Are they using artificial intelligence?" he asked his science officer. "Negative, sir. Our sensors detect a single organic mind controlling that ship. One brain is calculating those maneuvers in real time." The human ship reached the edge of Imperial sensor range and stopped instantly. No deceleration, no gradual slowing. It simply stopped. "That should have any organic crew," whispered the medical officer. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a data transmission from the human ship." "What kind of data?" "Star charts, mathematical formulas, and a message." The data appeared on their screens. The star charts showed regions of space the Empire had declared empty and lifeless. But according to these charts, those regions contained thousands of inhabited worlds. The mathematical formulas demonstrated technologies the Empire had believed impossible. And the message was simple. "Humanity survived your great purge. We've been watching, we've been preparing, and now we're ready to talk." Admiral's scales turned white with shock. The great purge, 300 years ago. How could these humans know about that? Admiral stared at the data on her screen. The Great Purge was classified information, known only to the highest levels of Imperial command. 300 years ago, the Empire had discovered a primitive species in what they now called the Void Sector. The decision had been made to eliminate them before they could become a threat. 47 star systems had been sterilized. Billions of primitive beings had been killed. The Empire had believed the job was complete. "Get me high command," ordered. "Emergency priority." While they waited for the connection, Captain's voice came through the speakers again. "Admiral, I know this is a shock. Your people did a thorough job 300 years ago, almost thorough enough." "How do you know about the Great Purge?" demanded. Because we lived through it, Admiral. Some of us anyway. We've spent 3 centuries making sure it never happens again. The connection to High Command came through. High Admiral appeared on the screen, his expression grim. Admiral, we've received your data transmission. This is a crisis of the highest order. Sir, these humans claim to be survivors of the Great Purge. That's impossible. We confirmed the elimination of all life in those systems. With respect, sir, Captain's voice cut in, your confirmation was incomplete. You destroyed our 46 colonies. What you didn't know was that we had already begun spreading beyond your mapped territories. Generation ships, hidden outposts, research stations in deep space. You killed billions of us, but millions survived. High Admiral's face went pale. How are you listening to this secure channel? Your encryption is based on mathematical principles we figured out 2 centuries ago, replied calmly. Admiral, if you're truly interested in understanding what happened, I suggest you dig deeper into your historical archives. Look for reports filed just before the purge. You'll find some interesting information about human expansion patterns. The connection to High Command ended abruptly. Admiral turned to her intelligence officer. Access the historical archives. Find everything about the species that was purged 300 years ago. The data came up quickly. The reports painted a disturbing picture. 300 years ago, humans had been primitive by Imperial standards. They had just achieved faster-than-light travel. But the early Imperial scouts had noted something unusual. Human expansion was rapid and aggressive. They were spreading to new worlds faster than any species the Empire had ever encountered. Admiral, her science officer, called out, "The human ship is moving again." On the screen, the Indomitable began a series of maneuvers that everything they knew about physics. It accelerated to 97% light speed instantly, stopped just as quickly, then began moving in impossible patterns. It seemed to teleport short distances, appearing in one location and instantly reappearing in another. Are they using some kind of jump drive? Captain Al asked from his ship. Negative, the science officer replied. They're actually moving through normal space. They're just doing it in ways that should be impossible. Captain Admiral called out, "How are you doing this?" 300 years of necessity, Admiral. When you're fighting for survival in irradiated space with failing technology, you learn to adapt. You learn to do things others think are impossible. The human ship stopped its demonstration and returned to its original position. Then something even more impossible happened. Captain materialized on the bridge of Admiral's flagship. No transporter beam, no shuttle, no warning. One moment the bridge was empty except for Imperial crew, the next moment a human stood near the main. Every weapon on the bridge was instantly pointed at him. The human raised his hands slowly, showing he carried no visible weapons. "Easy," he said calmly. "I come in peace, remember." Admiral studied the alien carefully. He looked almost disappointingly ordinary. 2 arms, 2 legs, bilateral symmetry like many species. He was tall for his build, with brown hair and calm blue eyes. He wore a simple uniform that seemed to be made of some unknown material. "How did you get on my ship?" she demanded. "I walked," replied. "Space and time are more flexible than your science suggests." "That's impossible. Admiral, 300 years ago, your people tried to commit genocide against my species. According to your science, we should have been extinct. Yet here I am. Maybe it's time to reconsider what's possible." His medical officer was scanning with every instrument available. The readings were disturbing. "Admiral, this is impossible. His cells are processing energy with 98% efficiency. His neural network is operating at quantum speeds. His reflexes suggest he perceives time differently than we do." Smiled, "Doctor, when you spend generations living on dead worlds with failing life support, you adapt or you die. We chose to adapt." "What exactly did you adapt to?" asked. "Everything, Admiral. Radiation that should have killed us made us stronger. Gravity wells that should have crushed us taught us to manipulate space-time. Lack of resources forced us to learn energy-matter conversion. You didn't just try to murder us. You created the conditions that forced us to evolve." The implications were staggering. How many of you survived? "Millions initially. We spent the 1st century just staying alive. The 2nd century learning to thrive in conditions you consider uninhabitable. The 3rd century." Paused. "The 3rd century we spent preparing for this conversation." "How many of you are there now?" Trillions, Admiral. We inhabit thousands of worlds across space you consider empty. We've learned to live in the hearts of stars, in the void between galaxies, in dimensions your science hasn't discovered yet. Admiral felt her world shifting around her. Why haven't you contacted us before now? We've been watching you, Admiral, studying you, learning about the empire that tried to exterminate us. We wanted to understand who we were dealing with before we made contact. And what did you learn? His expression grew serious. We learned that the empire hasn't changed much in 300 years. You still solve problems with overwhelming force. You still view other species as either subjects or threats. You still believe that might makes right. Are you here for revenge? If we wanted revenge, Admiral, you would already be dead. Every ship in the Imperial fleet, every world under Imperial control, every station and outpost, we could eliminate them all in a matter of hours. The casual way he said it was more terrifying than any threat. Then what do you want? We want what we should have had 300 years ago, Admiral. Recognition, respect. A place at the table when galactic decisions are made. The Empire tried to write humanity's ending. Instead, you wrote our beginning. Gestured toward where his ship waited in space. The Indomitable isn't just a vessel, Admiral. It's a living extension of its crew, grown rather than built. Its hull is stronger than any metal because it's composed of materials that don't exist in nature. Its engines manipulate gravity itself because we learn to survive in environments where normal physics don't apply. What are you proposing? A new arrangement, Admiral. The galaxy is big enough for all of us. But the old way of doing things, conquest, subjugation, genocide, that ends now. We're offering the Empire a choice, evolution or irrelevance. Before Admiral could respond, her communications officer called out. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout Imperial space. Unknown ships are appearing near major fleet concentrations. Nodded. My colleagues are introducing themselves to your fleets, Admiral. Don't worry, they're just saying hello. But I think you're beginning to understand that the balance of power in this galaxy has changed. Admiral looked at the readings on her screen. Hundreds of human ships had appeared throughout Imperial space. Each one showed the same impossible energy signatures as the Indomitable. The Empire's age of absolute dominance was over. Emergency sessions began immediately across the Empire. On the capital world of Prime, the ruling council gathered in their massive chamber. 47 species representatives sat at the curved table, each one representing billions of citizens. They had gathered to discuss the greatest crisis in Imperial history. High Admiral stood before the assembled representatives, his uniform crisp despite the chaos of the past few hours. Honored council members, I will be direct. The Empire faces a threat unlike anything in our 800-year history. He activated the holographic display above the table. Images of human ships appeared, scattered throughout Imperial space like seeds in a garden. Each ship showed impossible energy readings. These vessels, continued, represent technology that makes our entire fleet obsolete. Our best scientists estimate that any one of their ships could defeat our entire border fleet. Counselor, representing the warlike species, slammed his fist on the table. Then we must strike first, mobilize everything we have. With what? Replied grimly. Their ships can absorb our weapons' fire. They can move faster than our sensors can track. They appear and disappear at will. A military response would be suicide. On her flagship, Admiral continued her conversation with Captain. The human had accepted her invitation to formal diplomatic talks, though he had insisted on keeping things simple. Tell me about your people, said. They sat in her private conference room, just the two of them. How did you survive what we did to you? Stared out the viewport at the stars. Do you know what it's like to watch your burn, Admiral? To see the skis turn red as the atmosphere boils away? To know that everything you've ever known is dying? Remained silent. We had maybe 6 hours warning before your planet-killer weapons reached Earth, continued. 6 hours to evacuate everyone we could. We managed to save maybe 10% of our population. 10%, Admiral. That's 90% of our species murdered in a single day. I'm sorry, said quietly. Looked at her with those calm blue eyes. Are you, or are you just sorry that we survived? I wasn't part of the decision. I was just a junior officer 300 years ago. But you would have followed orders, wouldn't you? If you had been ordered to fire those weapons, you would have done it. considered lying, then decided on honesty. Yes, I would have followed orders. That's what I thought, stood and walked to the viewport. Do you want to know how we survived, Admiral? We did whatever it took. When the radiation levels on our refugee ships became lethal, we learned to absorb radiation instead of dying from it. When we ran out of food, we learned to convert energy directly into nutrients. When our ships began breaking down in deep space, we learned to grow new ones. Grow ships. Everything about us changed, Admiral. We had to change. The universe you forced us into didn't allow for weakness. Turned back to her. Would you like to see what we've become? Before could answer, the conference room around them faded away. She found herself standing on the surface of a planet unlike anything she had ever seen. The sky was deep purple, filled with swirling energy patterns. Mountains of crystal reached toward the stars, and rivers of liquid light flowed between them. This is New Geneva, said beside her. One of our newer worlds, we built it inside a star. Inside a star? The radiation and energy provide everything we need. We have thousands of worlds like this throughout the galaxy. Places your people consider uninhabitable have become our greatest cities. The scene changed. Now they stood on the deck of a massive structure floating in space. It was bigger than anything the Empire had ever built, stretching beyond the horizon in all directions. This is Haven Station, explained. We built it in the void between galaxies. It's home to about 50 billion people. 50 billion? Gasped. Imperial space stations rarely housed more than a few million. We learned to think bigger, Admiral. When you're fighting extinction, you don't limit yourself to what seems reasonable. The scene changed again. Now they were inside what looked like a vast library, but the books were made of light and the shelves stretched infinitely upward. Our memory archive, said. Every piece of human knowledge, every experience, every thought worth preserving. We learned early that information is more valuable than any physical resource. How is this possible? We stopped thinking like the species you tried to exterminate, Admiral. We became something new, something better. The conference room materialized around them again. Sat down heavily, her mind reeling from what she had seen. Why are you showing me this? She asked. Because I want you to understand what the Empire is really facing. This isn't a war, Admiral. Wars happen between equals. You're not our equals anymore. Sat across from her. But here's the thing, Admiral. We remember what it was like to be weak. We remember what it was like to be afraid. And we've decided that we don't want to become what you were 300 years ago. What do you mean? We could destroy the Empire tomorrow. Every ship, every world, every trace of Imperial civilization. We have that power. But power without restraint is just another form of madness. Leaned forward. We're offering you something your people never offered us, Admiral, a choice. What kind of choice? Join us or become irrelevant. The galaxy is changing whether you participate or not. Other species are watching this conversation, Admiral. They're seeing that the Empire isn't invincible anymore. Some of them remember what you did to their ancestors. Some of them are planning their own independence movements. As if summoned by his words, his communications officer contacted her. Admiral, we're receiving signals from across Imperial space. 17 member species have declared independence in the past hour. Smiled. It's already starting, Admiral. The Empire as you know it is ending. The question is whether it ends in chaos and violence or transforms into something better. What are you proposing? Full recognition of humanity as an independent power. Territorial rights to the regions we currently inhabit, and most importantly, fundamental changes to how the Empire interacts with other species. What kind of changes? No more preemptive strikes against developing civilizations, no more forced annexations, no more treating other species as subjects rather than equals. The galaxy belongs to all of us, Admiral. It's time the Empire learned to share. Thought about the implications. The Council will never agree to this. They will when they understand the alternative, said calmly. Would you like me to demonstrate what that alternative looks like? Before she could answer, every system on her ship went dead. Life support, engines, weapons, communications, everything shut down instantly. Then, just as quickly, everything came back online. We could have left the life support off, said quietly. We could do this to every ship in the Imperial fleet, every station, every planet, but we won't. Because unlike your people 300 years ago, we don't believe in genocide. What if the Empire refuses? Stood to leave. Then the Empire will discover that it's no longer the dominant power in this galaxy. We'll expand where we choose, trade with who we choose, and protect whoever asks for our protection. The Empire will become just another minor power in a galaxy that's moved beyond them. He paused at the door. But I hope it doesn't come to that, Admiral. Humanity learned something during our 3 centuries of survival. The universe is big enough for everyone if we're smart enough to share it. As faded away, returning to his own ship, Admiral was left alone with the most important decision in Imperial history. The debate raged for 6 straight days across the Empire. On Prime, the ruling council argued endlessly. Some wanted to fight, others wanted to surrender completely. Most were simply terrified of making the wrong choice. Admiral found herself in an unexpected position. She had become humanity's strongest supporter within the Imperial military. Her reports from the front lines carried weight that no politician could match. "Council members," she said, standing before the assembly on the 3rd day of debates, "I've spent 50 years serving this empire. I've conquered worlds and defeated enemies, but I've never faced anything like this." She activated the holographic display, showing the readings from her encounter with the human ship. These beings aren't just technologically superior. They're evolutionarily superior. They've become something we can't compete with. Counselor stood up, his scales dark with anger. "So you suggest we surrender, give up 800 years of imperial dominance?" "I suggest we adapt," replied firmly. "The same way they did, the same way any species does when facing extinction." "This is cowardice," shouted. Admiral's scales flashed red. "Counselor, I've been fighting wars since before you were hatched. This isn't cowardice. This is reality. You want to fight a species that can turn our weapons into harmless light? Be my guest. I'll write a very short report about how it ended." The council fell silent. Meanwhile, throughout Imperial space, the situation was rapidly changing. 23 species had now declared independence. Human ships appeared wherever Imperial forces tried to restore order, not attacking but simply observing. Their presence alone was enough to prevent violence. On the frontier world of VII, a local revolution was brewing against Imperial rule. When Imperial troops arrived to suppress it, they found a human ship waiting in orbit. Captain Sarah contacted the Imperial commander. "This is Captain of the Terran ship New Dawn. We're here to ensure this situation is resolved peacefully." "This is an internal Imperial matter," the commander replied. "Not anymore," said calmly. "The people have asked for our protection. We're providing it." The Imperial commander, remembering the reports about human capabilities, his troops. VII became a free world without a single shot being fired. Similar scenes played out across Imperial space. The mere presence of human ships was enough to prevent conflicts. Worlds that had been under Imperial rule for centuries suddenly found themselves free to choose their own governments. Back on Prime, High Admiral received reports from dozens of sectors. The Empire was falling apart, not through military conquest, but through irrelevance. Species were simply walking away from Imperial authority, confident that the humans would protect them if necessary. "Sir," his aide reported, "we've lost effective control of 40% of our territory in the past week." Lost asked. "The worlds are still there, sir. They're just not following Imperial law anymore, and our ships can't enforce compliance with human vessels protecting them." On the 6th day of debates, Captain himself appeared before the Imperial Council. He didn't ask for permission. He simply materialized in the center of the chamber, causing several counselors to draw weapons. "Please," said calmly, "let's keep this civilized." High Counselor N, the elderly leader of the council, gestured for the guards to lower their weapons. "Captain, you've caused quite a disturbance in our space." "Counselor, I haven't fired a single shot. I haven't threatened anyone. I've simply existed in the same galaxy as you. If that's causing a disturbance, perhaps the problem isn't with me. You're supporting rebellions across Imperial space." "I'm protecting people who asked for protection," corrected. "There's a difference." "What do you want from us?" and asked bluntly. "I want you to join the future instead of clinging to the past," replied. "The age of empires is ending, Counselor. The galaxy is becoming a community of equals. You can be part of that community, or you can be left behind. And if we choose to fight..." His expression grew sad. Then you'll lose, counselor, quickly and completely. But more importantly, you'll force us to become something we don't want to be. We've spent 3 centuries learning to be better than what you made us. Please don't force us to prove that we're also stronger. The vote came on the 7th day. It wasn't close. 38 species voted to accept humanity's proposal. 9 voted against. The empire as it had existed was officially dissolved, replaced by something unprecedented in galactic history, the Galactic Cooperation Council. Admiral stood on the bridge of a new kind of ship 6 months later. The New Horizons was a joint construction project built using both Imperial and human technology. Her crew included beings from 17 different species, including 3 humans. Her first officer was Commander Sarah Park, a human engineer who had helped design the ship's revolutionary systems. Admiral, we're approaching the edge of explored space, ready to begin the survey mission. Proceed, ordered. The New Horizons was the first ship of its kind, a true cooperation between former enemies. Its mission was exploration, not conquest. It would seek out new civilizations to invite into the galactic community, not to subjugate them. Sir, reported Lieutenant On from the sensor station, I'm detecting an artificial signal from the 3rd planet in this system. Life signs. Confirmed, appears to be a pre-civilization. In the old empire, this would have meant either conquest or destruction, depending on whether the species showed useful traits. Now, it meant something else entirely. Prepare a monitoring probe, ordered. Long-range observation only. We'll study them from a distance until they're ready for contact. How long should we wait? Asked Commander Park. As long as it takes, replied. They have a right to develop at their own pace. It was a simple statement, but it represented a revolution in thinking. For the first time in Imperial history, another species' rights were being considered more important than Imperial needs. Captain watched the proceedings from his own ship, the Indomitable. The old warship had been converted into an exploration vessel, its weapons replaced with scientific equipment and diplomatic facilities. Captain, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a message from Earth. Put it through. The face of Admiral Torres appeared on the screen. She was the current head of the Terran Exploration Command, the civilian organization that had replaced humanity's military structure. James, congratulations on the success of the joint mission. How are relations with your Imperial colleagues? Smiled, they're learning. It's going to take time, but they're learning. Admiral has become a remarkable leader. She's nothing like the Imperial officers of 300 years ago. And the other species? Adapting faster than we expected. Turns out a lot of them were only following Imperial law because they were afraid. Now that they have a choice, most of them are choosing cooperation over domination. Any regrets about not pursuing revenge? Consider the question seriously. Sometimes, when I think about what they did to Earth, to our people, but then I look around and see what we've built instead. We didn't just survive their attempt at genocide, we transcended it. We became something better than they ever were. And the galaxy? The galaxy is finally growing up. 1 year after the dissolution of the Empire, the galaxy was indeed transforming. Trade flourished between former enemies. Scientific knowledge was shared freely. Conflicts were resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. The humans had kept their promise. They shared selected technologies that revolutionized life across hundreds of worlds. Medical advances extended. Agricultural techniques transformed barren planets into gardens. Energy systems provided clean power without environmental damage. In return, they gained what they had always wanted: recognition, respect, and a voice in galactic affairs. Admiral completed her log entry as the New Horizons prepared to jump to its next destination. Personal log, day 347 of the joint exploration mission. We discovered our 4th new civilization today. Young, just beginning to reach for the stars. In the old empire, we would have them for future conquest. Today, we're simply happy to know they exist and that they'll have a choice about their future. She paused, looking out at the stars. 300 years ago, the Empire made the worst mistake in its history. We tried to destroy a species that challenged us. Instead, we created our greatest teachers. Humanity didn't just survive our attempt at genocide, they transcended it, and in doing so, they showed us how to transcend ourselves. Today begins a new chapter for all of us. not written in conquest or domination, but in cooperation and hope. The galaxy is vast enough for everyone if we're wise enough to share it. The New Horizons engaged its hybrid drive system and leaped toward the stars, carrying its diverse crew toward new discoveries and new possibilities. Behind them, the old empire was gone. Ahead of them, the future waited with infinite potential.